Daily Grand Alive. This is Will Bowman and Coffee with Will and Jack Howard. And it's brought to you by Marketplace Family Foods, Valley Realty, Grand Ron Hospital, Sea Bright Dentistry, and Northwest Furniture and Mattress. And like I said, I'm here with Jack Howard, who is a Union County Commissioner and a good friend, and we're just going to chat for a few minutes. So thank you for coming in to me and chatting with me today, Zach.
It was a pleasure.
Wow, I just called you Zach, not Jack. Zach. Can I call you Zach for the rest of this interview?
Put Zach on a rack. I don't care. It sounds like a new delicacy.
Well, we were just talking about how language is fluid, so you really could be Zach in another universe.
Well, the language may be fluid, but I think your tongue is even more fluid. So I'm gonna turn it. What am I gonna be by the end of this program?
I just ran for 3.5 hours yesterday.
That's what I'm telling you.
My tongue is still catching up with my feet.
Would you run on your tongue?
Yes, that's
by
what I did.
By the end of 26.2 miles.
It was even more impressive
it's
because
down.
of that.
Yeah. Well, when you say you have a shoe problem,
see, this is why Zach and I. This is why
Zach. Bill does
this all the time. This is why Jack and I are friends. Okay, so I'm going to start the 10-minute. I'm going to start the 10-minute clock, or else we're going to go for an hour. So, thank you for coming in and chatting with me. So the thing I wanted to talk to you about, whether or not we actually end up doing that. Oh yeah. So
I haven't tried it yet.
This is really good coffee. This is Starkey coffee.
What a build-up. What am I supposed to say if I hate it? Is there gonna be
you can say you hate it.
Is there going to be an insipid slurping noise here?
I might kick you off my stage, but you know.
Well, the aroma's good. I'd like to see you kick me off the stage. Okay.
Exert my power over you.
You know what? I like strong coffee.
Me too.
I like this coffee.
All right. Good. I don't have to kick you off my stage.
It passed inspection. Okay, so I was a little bit afraid. So you're gonna. Your coffee has a kick. How's that?
It really does.
I'm gonna have a little more. So anyway, we're gonna talk about something like that.
So the thing I really wanted to talk to you about, last week we talked a little bit about the Elgin project that you've been working on. So just so you guys know, Jack, do not know why I'm doing that. Jack has been trying to, that has been working with a group in Elgin to bring a museum, to get a museum of Elgin in Elgin. And it is a project that Jack essentially facilitated, and it stems from, but it's true. You went out, you listened to people, and you interacted with them, and they expressed the desire to you, and you said, how can I help? And so you facilitated the growth of that.
The transfer of the property and stuff like that. You know what, when something happens, you usually find, especially in this kind of work, that it happens for a reason, and it almost always happens with somebody back here. Mm-hmm. And one of the worst things that happens in life when you're getting these images of what's happened is the person at the end or the person that might have a platform, they tend to get looked at. I mean, the people in Elgin did this, you know, over the course of years. So so never give credit to anybody in the political sphere. Just avoid that like the plague, okay? That's why I'm making funny faces.
So this kind of ties in with what I wanted to talk to you about, because you kind of talked to me a little bit about your philosophy of government as a facilitator and government as a catalyst. And as someone who runs more libertarian, just in my thoughts, I'm not really that political, as a lot of young people aren't, but in my thoughts, I tend to think of things along the libertarian mindset, in that, you know, the private sector, whether that be in morals or economics, can do things better, so it should be allowed to do things and will do things better if left to its own devices. I have my own inhibitions about that, but that's not important. This isn't about me, it's about you. But the point
Don't worry, I'll turn it around in a second.
The point being is that you listed off to me your philosophy of government as facilitator, and I was very impressed by it, as someone who doesn't consider government as someone who is skeptical about government's ability to be able to step in and do real good and that kind of a thing. And I wanted you to kind of talk about your passion for politics and how you view politics in that way, because people didn't get to see that part of the interview. Okay. So tell me, how did you get involved with politics? Because it's obviously something you really care about.
I do. And we can do that maybe as a conversation between the two of us, because again,
absolutely.
It doesn't work for me just to say this is why I like politics. Or
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, so even when you reference out or frame out the fact that you're a libertarian, I mean, don't you hate that label?
Yes.
You're calling yourself a name.
Well, exactly. I mean, my friend Paul Rowan once said that some of the Republicans he knew were some of the most democratic people he knew, and some of the Democrats he knew were some of the most. Some of the Republicans he knew were some of the most liberal people he knew, and some of the Democrats he knew were some of the most conservative.
Right.
So I totally get what you're saying.
And we've seen those demo maps from the 40s, when we've seen people split more and more apart based upon a label, calling themselves Republicans and Democrats. So when we talk about politics, it's interesting when you say you're not necessarily into politics, or I wish I knew the exact phrase you used, but that means you are involved in politics, because politics is the body. I've got a friend that started a company 4 years ago, and it's called Politicast. And what it is an opinion moving piece that uses cell phone technology. So he'll put out massive communication pieces through cell phones or short message servicing. And he helped move the election in 2008 in Florida based upon short message systems. And what amazed me about that was that people could actually be impacted with just a few words of script. You kind of think, geez, that's our politics? Get motivated because you see 6 words show up on your cell phone? The reality is that's politics. When we're communicating something that's important to you, that's politics. When you decide what company to support, that's politics. So the nature of politics has always been all-encompassing. Unfortunately, there's these contradictions. We were talking earlier about it doesn't matter, right? And all these contradictions we live in. One of the truths about politics is the same truth about life or spiritual values or anything that's important, and that is, I think it was Pascal that said, nature abhors a vacuum. Anytime that there's an empty presence or space, something will fill it eventually. That's the nature of human transition. So in politics, there are a continuous series of vacuums. And the more the system begins to break down, the larger those vacuums become, the more unhealthy the system becomes, and the more likely it is for an unhealthy force or an uneven or unintegrated or distorted force to move into that vacuum. And that's why systems break down. It's a sort of disease. In American politics, we've had this wonderful opportunity, because I think we've been God-blessed, to have this frontier to shape us. And people have argued that constantly about the American system of politics, that it really reflects this sense of growing and changing. Look where we are today. We're now in a system where change became a political axiom.
It's true. I mean, that's true with
But
the
it's
past
distorted.
election, and that was Obama's
Yep.
election running. It was what he ran on was change.
Yeah.
And a lot of young people.
Who's against that?
Yeah, exactly. And especially young people. Young people love the idea
Right.
of change because they're very much frustrated with the status quo as it is. People who are
Exactly.
older, they're settled, they're happy. They're like, I don't want to change.
And
You
so
know?
what are we looking at in 2016? What's Donald Trump's big message?
Make America great again.
Which is another phrase for
Change.
bingo.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
nothing changes, the more it stays the same. So we've got this massive shift. And Trump, I watched the debate last night. He did something fascinating. He said, people are unhappy in this country and things are messed up and everything's broken and everything's bad. All right, so what are you going to do about it? Nothing, except call for change. Call for the change agent, and he's the change agent. So that's unhealthy politics, and
Yeah.
I'm rejecting that out of hand.
Yeah.
And what I love to do in an area where people are conservative, they immediately presume that means I must be a Clinton supporter. Last thing in the world. Last thing in the world, I had a mayor here, a local mayor, come up to me, and he was angry. And he knew my point of view was to endorse neither candidate. I liked John Kasich in the Republican primary, in part because the client I mentioned was working with his campaign manager. So I've got some connection to the Kasich campaign. But I'm a Democrat. And I also supported Sanders because there's zero chance I'm ever going to support or vote for Hillary Clinton. So that's the context of change for me, is I want real change.
Okay, so yeah, tell me about that. How does that, so you are a commissioner, how do you try to enact change in Union County?
Excellent. Excellent. So I've got 3 priorities when I come in. I know when I was running for office, I was completely opposed to the destruction of the women's shelter. I thought that was wrong. It was egregiously wrong from a legal point of view and from a moral point of view. And I was very consistent when I was running for office that those 2 issues, legality and morality, can't be left out of the public sphere. And those arguments and those discussions weren't at the center of the discussion about the shelter. It was about, can we get it done fiscally? That was the wrong argument. When government becomes disengaged from the morality of a society, or in this case of our community, that government is going to become corrupt. They will create a vacuum that allows only power to come into it. That's my fundamental philosophy about what's wrong with government. What's right about government is when government goes back to the people and facilitates conversations and communications with those people, then that works.
Government as facilitator.
Exactly. So to facilitate those conversations, how do we do it? The marijuana prospect came up last year. So we had a vote, and by the way, I voted against retail sales of marijuana. I went to workshops after Oregon approved retail sales and learned about what was going to happen, learned about the economy of what was going to happen if retail sales were allowed to grow naturally in the state. And I came to the conclusion that we needed to study that. When I came back here, I also realized that there were a lot of people who were very upset at that side of the state. So this is a learning process, and my philosophy as a politician is to learn, listen, and lead. Those 3 things have to occur. And I don't believe our politicians do that now. I think they exploit distort, and borrow. Borrow money, borrow ideas, borrow from fear. So listen, learn, and lead. So the marijuana issue is a great example where a vacuum was occurring because we've created a vacuum where the state says one thing and Eastern Oregon says another. And so out of anger, people tried to push that issue away. We have to engage in a conversation with that. So rather than having the county take a specific position to ban retail sales in the state, my position was, why not send it out to the voters of the county? Why not what was called opt the vote, to allow voters the opportunity to vote on an issue that was pivotal? And the response was, no, we've already voted. See what we've got again. We've got people saying, no, that's what we did then, that's what we're going to do in the future. I'm afraid of change. Now, they were willing to fight for the right to be represented until it started threatening their sense of self-purpose again. And then I start seeing the democratic system breaks down when we don't trust the people. And we're electing politicians that won't listen to the people. They're afraid of all the people now because change is going to come. The society is changing in enormous ways right now.
So go ahead and finish up and I'll bring us out.
And unless we embrace those opportunities for change that involves all voices, we're going to start deciding who do we listen to and what's that value of opinion.
And that was what was so impressive to me when you were talking to me about that was it was the first step with this Elgin Museum was you went to Elgin and you listened to people. You talked to people. You interacted with people. And there was a desire for this thing, and which was maybe not, you like Elgin, you enjoy Elgin. But it was a desire that was expressed to you by people who were already there.
Well said.
And so
well said.
that you decided that you would take that and you would run with it. And that was what was very impressive. It was the listening aspect, that it wasn't something that you had, it was a listening aspect. And there was that element. And then the other aspect that impressed me was you turned it back over to the people that was there, because you didn't try to do everything. You took it, you said, you got them invested, you got them a grant, and you said, now you guys make it happen.
I'm glad you put it that way too, because I did want to touch on the three things that are important. So I come into office, there's three things I believe in. Number one is we need a new jail facility. And that jail facility is the core of corrections in our community. That's number one. Number two, I believe in fixing that golf course we've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in. We need to fix that. And number three is poverty in Union County. Our rates of poverty are 18%. Those are my three focals in my job right now. And part of the reason is because those three things haven't been addressed in 20 years. And by listening to the people that work at the jail and the Sheriff Rasmussen, who's a wonderful leader, by looking at the golf course, and we're going to have a meeting in December to talk about some of the components of what people expect from that course, a real public discussion. And then poverty, people that haven't been brought to the table. It's too easy to look at the suffering people. I know people that rent in this county who actually have had sewage come up through the floors of their showers. That's inexcusable for us. It's not good enough. And we can do more, but we need to listen to these folks too. So there's three groups of people. I mean, I've lived in or close to poverty at times in my life. I know what it is to not be heard. And so at any time, if a politician isn't listening to some group that's bigger than just a donor or a business owner or somebody that's got special significance or political pull, I don't believe they should be in office. I believe you have to represent the people, which is, you're saying right now, to believe in them and to ask for opportunities to engage with them, to take responsibilities for themselves. People want that. They crave that today, to have more ownership.
That's true.
And it begins with being heard. We need to do that and demand it as something that's just basic to politics. And I'm demanding that. And I know I make some people uncomfortable when I say it that way, but I don't care what you label me. Call me a liberal today or a conservative tomorrow, a Democrat yesterday or a Republican tomorrow. I don't care. Forget the labels, because what I care about is being a Christian and being a fully humanized, heartfelt man who listens to people that have something to say. And I'm going to encourage them to have that platform. That's where I am.
Well, I don't think I could have said it better than that. Thanks, LaGrand Alive, and this has been Coffee with Jack. Thanks for coming in and chatting with me, Jack.
It's always a pleasure to see you. We could keep going.
We could be here for an hour.
Make Brent stay here for another 3 hours.
So thank you guys
Brent.
for tuning in to LaGrand Alive, and tune in for more local content. This was brought to you by Valley Realty, Northwest Furniture and Mattress, Marketplace Family Foods, and Grand Ron Hospital. So thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for more local content. I'm Will Bellman. Thanks.